Before the decision, before there was an island, there was noise. In the mid-20th century, the world was accelerating. Cities were expanding. Airplanes were shrinking distances. Telephones were ringing more often. And somewhere inside this growing rhythm of modern life, a quiet man named Brendon Grimshaw felt something different. Not rebellion. Not anger. Just a soft exhaustion. He worked as a newspaper editor in East Africa. His days were filled with headlines, politics, deadlines, urgency, ink on paper, voices demanding attention. But at night, he dreamed of quiet. One afternoon, while sailing near the islands of Seychelles, he saw something small in the distance. A green shape resting on endless blue water. It was Moyen Island. Not dramatic. Not towering. Just still. When he stepped onto its shore, there were no welcoming signs. No structures. No voices. Only the sound of wind moving through dry leaves. And waves, folding gently against coral sand. The island felt forgotten. And perhaps that was what drew him closer. He walked slowly across uneven ground. The soil was thin. Coconut trees stood scattered and tired. Much of the native forest had been cleared long ago. It was not paradise. It was possibility. In 1962, Brendon bought Moyen Island. £8,000. To some, that sounded romantic. To others, foolish. Why buy isolation? Why choose inconvenience? But Brendon was not searching for comfort. He was searching for alignment. He did not immediately move there permanently. At first, he visited, learning the tides, observing the light, understanding the rhythm. Then gradually, the island became home. Restoration began quietly. There were no grand announcements. No investors. No machinery. Just a man, a shovel, and tropical heat. He planted trees. Hundreds at first. Then thousands. Mahogany. Fruit trees. Native species. 16,000 in total. Imagine the patience required. Digging into sun-baked soil. Carrying water by hand. Returning the next day to check fragile leaves. Trees grow slowly. And so, without realizing it, Brendon began to grow slowly too. His pace matched the island's. Over time, giant tortoises were introduced to Moyen. Ancient creatures. Living reminders of another era. They moved without urgency. Each step deliberate. Each breath unhurried. Brendon admired them deeply. They did not measure success. They did not chase ambition. They simply existed. Some evenings, he would sit quietly and watch them cross sandy paths he had carved years before. No conversation was needed. Only presence. There was no city glow on Moyen. When the sun disappeared, darkness was complete. But not empty. The sky unfolded. Stars layered upon stars. The Milky Way stretching clearly above. Wind brushing palm leaves. The distant hush of tide shifting. Sometimes rain would arrive suddenly. Heavy. Warm. Temporary. And afterward, the scent of earth would rise into the night air. Brendon often said that silence on the island was never lonely. Because nature was always speaking. Just softly. Years passed. News of the man on the island traveled. Visitors came occasionally. Journalists. Curious travelers. And eventually, a wealthy prince made an offer. Millions of dollars. Enough for comfort anywhere in the world. Enough for security. Enough for luxury. But the offer felt distant. Abstract. What would money buy him that he did not already have? He had sunrises. He had trees he planted as saplings now towering above him. He had tortoises that trusted his presence. He said no. Calmly. Without drama. The island was not an asset. It was a responsibility. On Moyen, time moved differently. There were no traffic jams. No rush hours. Instead, there were rainy seasons. Dry months. Flowering cycles. He measured life in growth rings and hatchlings. In birds returning to nest. In shade deepening beneath expanding canopies. The island, once sparse, became dense with green. Where soil had eroded, roots now held firm. Where silence once felt empty, it now felt alive. Today, Moyen Island still rests quietly in the Indian Ocean. Tourists visit gently. Tortoises wander. Forests breathe. And somewhere in that living ecosystem is the quiet imprint of one human decision. Not to conquer. Not to extract. But to restore. In a century defined by acceleration, Brendon Grimshaw chose deceleration. He chose roots over roads. Shade over skyscrapers. Silence over applause. Pause 5 seconds. As you lie here tonight, notice your own breathing. Slow. Steady. Like waves touching a small island in the dark. Let your thoughts drift like leaves in warm wind. And remember, there are still places in this world where life moves slowly. And sometimes, that is enough. Good night.